Edgar Cayce inspired people to reimagine their world and their place within it. Artists, business professionals, doctors, homemakers, teachers, and more found their strengths through the Cayce material. They wrote books, conducted experiments, and hit the road to try to validate the information in the readings and build an international community dedicated to physical, mental, and spiritual health. In this video series, we're introducing you to the men and women who kept the Cayce work thriving.
In Toledo, Ohio, on April 10th, 1952, by Tom Sugrue and Hugh Lynn Cayce. The next voice you hear will be that of Tom Sugrue.
I want to talk to you about prophecy because in about 50 years, your children will be able to say either the prophecy is true or it's not true. The reason that Mr. Cayce and I are going to speak to you about what we call the Great Prophecies is that these Great Prophecies are existing, some of them for 1,000 years or more, some of them for perhaps several thousand years. But it seems you see, I told you that thing was tricky. It seems that if they are going to come true at all, 60 years, so that we can wipe them off the books one way or the other. Either they will be fulfilled or they will be proved to have been hallucinations or fraudulent devices of some over-imaginative prophet or astrologer or saint.
Many people have told me they first encountered Edgar Cayce when they picked up the book There's a River, the first biography published in 1942. Within these pages they met Edgar and Gertrude and the rest of the family, learned of Edgar's remarkable abilities, and the real emotional and material challenges that came with working as a psychic in the public eye. But who was the author behind the book? What is his part in the story? Thomas Sugrue was born in Naugatuck, Connecticut in 1907. His connection to the Cayces came when he shared a room with Edgar's son Hugh Lynn at Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia. At first, Tom and Hugh Lynn couldn't stand each other. In his memoirs, Hugh Lynn recounted,
"We didn't just argue, we fought constantly, and some of the things we fought over were childish. I had put up a Virginia Beach pennant in our study room. He came in and said, 'Take that thing down. I'm not going to have a Virginia Beach pennant in here.' And I said, 'There are 4 walls here. You can put up whatever you want. Put up one of Naugatuck so people here will know how to spell it.'"
The subject of psychic phenomena was a definite point of contention. Tom was ever the harsh skeptic. Hugh Lynn, the psychic investigator, filled with youthful enthusiasm and faith in his father's abilities. Hugh Lynn brought Tom down to Virginia Beach for a visit one school holiday, and Tom changed his mind after spending time with the Cayces and studying Edgar's work. He and Hugh Lynn also became best friends for the rest of Tom's life. By 1929, Sugrue was doing coursework, editing the school yearbook, and serving as editor of publications for the Association of National Investigators, the organization studying Edgar's work before the Association for Research and Enlightenment, all from his dorm room at Washington and Lee. Tom believed that the Cayce work could thrive and that the world would take a serious interest with the right publication plan in place. He designed and wrote the text for the Cayce Hospital promotional booklet and edited the New Tomorrow Journal with Hugh Lynn, organizing the printing of 500 first issues. By the end of 1929, Tom was dreaming of an illustrious literary career in service of the association, which was still doing well and had just added a nurse's quarters to its hospital campus.
Since I've heard the news of the new building and the plans for the new future, I haven't been able to tempt interest in classes. In dreams, I am there already and can see each detail of my office. The stories going out to every newspaper, the novels, dramas, textbooks, essays, articles, etc. And our magazine growing bigger and better and marching to the forefront of American publications. Nice dream, isn't it? But men live on dreams, and great men make their dreams come true.
However, that dream came crashing down with the stock market, with the closure of the hospital and the disbanding of the Association of National Investigators. Tom graduated from Washington and Lee with a master's degree in 1930 and returned to Connecticut. There he became victim to the postgraduate doldrums. Low on funds, unable to land a paying gig as a writer, and wishing he was back in Virginia Beach. He wrote to Edgar,
"We must all be tried by fire, and this, it seems, is my era of mental tempering. No one can possibly realize the amount of effort I have made in restraint, the outbursts I have smothered, the moods I have killed, the smiles and cheerfulness I have forced, the dislikes I have refused to sanction, and the general hopelessness I have firmly pushed into the background. I feel that this year has been of great help in forming my character and forging more securely the bonds of a temperament which must learn tolerance and restraint if it is to live at all. On the other hand, my ideals and ambitions have only become the more firmly embedded because of this continual failure. My determination is more silent and fierce, and my literary art more clear, pointed, and well-grounded. It is in the nature of a university session, and I would not have missed it. I want you to know how fully in accord with you I am, how eager I am to begin work. For me, there is now no other profession in the slightest way attractive or desirable. And I want you to know that I shall have a more mature, determined, faithful, and idealistic attitude than heretofore. I trust this time our tribulations of the past will find a justification and triumph, and because we have been through them, we shall be the more worthy and capable of success."
Career stagnation didn't last long. In August 1930, Tom took his remaining resources and went to New York City, pounding the pavement for a few weeks to see if any newspaper would have him. He met with author Grace Morse, who admired the writing in his short stories.
She talked with me for quite a while, gave me lots of advice, and predicted that I would land soon, as she said I have humor, style, and grace in my writing. I felt so good after that interview that I decided to try my old habit, and walked around the block to the Herald Tribune building. Walker, the editor, shook hands with me, and after a few preliminary remarks, suddenly asked me if I still wanted a job. I almost fell out of my chair, but managed to stammer, "Yes."
Tom became a staff reporter for the Herald Tribune, working his way from anonymous columns to features with a byline. He described his first week in a letter to Edgar.
"This is my 4th day. First day I had a police story of a beer truck that ran into a hydrant. Second day, a 50th wedding anniversary that had a strange twist in that the 76-year-old husband had been saved by 2 major operations recently performed by a man who was chief surgeon of the German Red Cross during the war. I met him and talked with him for a while. Third day I went to the zoo and met with the director of the park, a lovable old man who took me into his office and reminisced for several hours. He left today for Europe, and I had the story."
Edgar congratulated him on his good fortune in finding a position as a journalist, gently reminding Tom not to become too hard-boiled nor self-centered. In 1934, Suguru joined the staff of the American magazine to write features on world travel. He married Margaret Ganey on October 26, 1935, and had 1 daughter. In 1940, his first novel, Such is the Kingdom, was published, followed later by Starling of the White House in 1946, the story of the Secret Service agent Colonel Edmund Starling. Sugrue remained a successful journalist, contributing work to The New Yorker, North American Review, Scribner's Magazine, Harper's Bazaar, and Good Housekeeping. As the journalism career blossomed, Tom never gave up on the dedication to the Cayce work. He was deeply involved with the planning of the Airy. He submitted questions for readings on the work at Edgar's invitation. "If you are ready to cast your lot with the phenomena," Edgar wrote. In some of the readings, now known as the 254 series, Tom asked about his future connection to the work, the development of publication, data, and lectures departments, and the stability of this future organization. He was interested in the logistics and marketing writing projects that would encourage others' interest and emotional attachment to the work. Thomas Sugrue first mentioned his interest in writing Edgar Cayce's biography in 1932. There was some interest from Hollywood at the time. A few members of the movie industry were requesting readings. Tom thought that submitting a detailed treatment for a potential film would both ensure Edgar's story would be treated with respect and provide much-needed funds for the association. However, the Hollywood interest dissipated, but Tom's interest in writing a biography did not. In 1939, he was struck with a disease which left him partially paralyzed. After a short stay in Clearwater, Florida, in June of that year, Sugrue moved into Edgar and Gertrude Cayce's home. He lived with the Cayces for 2 years, gathering material from the files kept by Gladys Davis to write There's a River. Sugrue's editor at Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston actually rejected the first draft, there were too many extracts and readings. He felt that the writing style wouldn't encourage people to connect emotionally with the story or suspend their credulity enough to accept the phenomena described in the book. That November of 1941, Tom rewrote the whole book, with his wife Mary doing the typing, proofreading, and editing. In the foreword to the 1945 edition, he explained his revised approach to telling Edgar's story.
I knew Mrs. Cayce's mother, Miss Evans, and Grace Salter. Like the Cayce boys and Tommy House, has long been a friend. I have known two of Mr. Cayce's sisters, Annie and Sarah, for many years. Other members of the Cayce and Salter families I have met and talked with from time to time. All have aided me. I have gradually acquired a knowledge of and a fondness for all these people, which is comparable to a novelist's feeling for the characters he has created. That is why the biography, in many parts, reads like a family chronicle.
He moved the extracts to the appendix and added the philosophy section to explain the spiritual principles behind the readings. Suguru wrote the book in such a way as to remain truthful to actual events, while also appealing to the 1940s American literary market. After the book was submitted, Tom left for Florida, and the Cayce household felt his absence keenly. Hugh Lynn wrote him saying,
I miss you. In fact, the whole family misses you, is putting it very mildly. I have caught myself several times starting for the room upstairs. Even this morning, I got halfway up the steps with the morning paper. I have finished reading the last chapters of the book, and it will go off today to the publisher. Gladys has been rereading it also, catching a few of the quotations and typographical mistakes, of which there are very few. There are passages in the book that are very beautiful. Tom, I think you've written a swell book.
There's a River was a success and was reprinted in several editions throughout the rest of the 40s and 50s. It remains in print today. The book, as well as Marguerite Bro's article about Edgar's work in Coronet magazine, caused intense interest in the readings, and the deluge of requests for readings that characterized the last years of Edgar's life. Sugrue wrote 7 books in total, including Watch for the Morning in 1950, a study of the Zionist movement. His publisher subsidized a trip to Israel, and Tom remained involved with members of the Zionist movement upon his return to New York City. His last book, A Catholic Speaks His Mind, published in 1952, detailed his complicated spiritual journey. He also hosted the Conversations at 8 radio program out of New York City, beginning in 1947. From that year until the end of 1952, he appeared in a lecture series for the ARE, often beside his friend Hugh Lynn. In January of 1953, he entered the hospital for a series of operations, but died in surgery on January 6, 1953. In a letter dated July 15, 1954, Hugh Lynn Cayce announced the establishment of the Thomas Sugrue Memorial Library at Wainwright House, a holistic learning center founded in 1951 in Rye, New York, that still exists today. It was home to the Layman's Movement, a group that fostered spiritual values in the workplace, as well as hosting United Nations conflict resolution sessions. Thomas Sugrue was one of the key figures in ARE's history. Throughout his own career, he remained deeply committed to seeing the work succeed. As editor of publications, and later in an unofficial capacity, he designed the publication strategy from pamphlets to paperbacks that would prove so influential throughout the 20th century, sparking interest in people from all walks of life and from all over the world.